Hey everyone, it's actually been quite a few days already since the version itself released, but this is the 1.16.0.63 beta, and there are some interesting changes, including a bug fix that we have been waiting for a long time, which has been semi-fixed, but it's better than nothing. And well, there also is quite a long changelog, but the majority of the changelog is mostly small fixes, which is not a bad thing at all. In fact, it is a very good thing that they are getting the small things out of the way. And well, it looks like we are, oh hello Gast, we're getting more and more bug fixes, and yeah, we have some interesting new ones that I'm going to show you. So the first one related to Nether biome generation is that, I quote, that the balance has been tweaked and that you will see warped forest less commonly. Now, what was seen before in the Nether is that you would see warped forests all the time, which is basically this one right here, but in blue. And you would see it all over the place, it would just be incredibly unbalanced. But now they have tweaked that, although they have tweaked that, that's what they said, but for me now it's the opposite. I constantly see these crimson forests, which I haven't seen at all, or well, I really had to search to find one, and well, now I don't see the warp forest anymore. I've been flying around for half an hour before and I didn't find a single warp forest, but these crimson forests, they are really all over the place, and yeah, it's I don't know what to say now, because the other biomes are still not that common. You know, the Soul Sand Valley, you can find it fairly normally, as well as the Basalt Delta. But now the Warp Forest is just cannot be found, and well, the Crimson Forests are all over the place. So I feel like there's definitely still some tweaking that needs to be done. So the next fix on our list is that twisting vines and weeping vines now properly work with bone meal and dispensers. Previously, you could of course just manually bone meal both types of vines, and well, it would kind of work, so as you can see that does work, but it would not work with a dispenser, and now it does. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's just demonstrate that. As you can see, it does work indeed, and I think that is a nice change, because now we can make twisting and weeping vine farms using dispensers. One bug, however, that remains is that these weeping and twisting vines seem to float when the random tick speed in your world is set to 0. So if I just place some weeping and twisting vines right here, as you can see, if I do break a middle one, it just stays floating, and so does the twisting vines. And well, that is, I think, quite funny still, because look at this, it's just floating, okay, but yeah, that is not fixed, although that is not very important, because I'm pretty sure that you will not be playing with the random tick speed 0 in a survival world. It would be a pretty nice fix when you take into account that there are of course creative worlds where the random tick speed will be set to 0, so yeah, that would be nice. What has also been fixed is that weeping and twisting vines would grow ridiculously easy if you would just, well, place them on something like an observer or a dropper or a dispenser, and then you would activate it, because that would give a block update below, and sort of enact the same principle as zero tick, but since you were not actually removing a requirement and returning it in the same tick, it would not be qualified as zero tick, but you know, it would work in the same way. It would be a force update weeping and twisting vine concept, and that seems to have been patched. And before anyone gets mad, personally I think that is a good change, because well, that was too ridiculously easy anyway, and sometime in the future I think that zero tick should be patched anyway, because well, it is quite overpowered and not balanced, but I think it is good that this one in particular has been fixed now, because it was quite ridiculous. So as you may know, villager-based crop farms are not quite the commodity nowadays after Village and Pillage, because they changed quite a few mechanics, and one of them was that the villagers would not harvest anymore if their inventory was full or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but we can try to simulate that, so I'm just going to throw some crops at him, so let's see if he does pick them up. He does indeed, and well, now we can just try to, well, bone meal that. Will he harvest them? Maybe he will, maybe he will not, but the change listed in the changelog is that they will now harvest crops even when their inventory is full. and that means some things for villager-based crop farms, well, if it works, presumably, and that is that you could just have a villager-based crop farm that works without the sharing mechanic. You would just have a hopper minecart running below the farmland blocks and pick up any excess crops that the villager would not have in his inventory anymore, because of course he has limited inventory space. And well, that could also mean that villager-based nano crop farms could also work, so the ones that automatically break the crop that is generated by the bone meal with a villager. That also used to exist. There is one by JX67. It's a very old one, but it was pretty cool. I will link that in the description. But yeah, that is something pretty interesting, and I don't even know if that works, but well, you know me, I'm not the kind of villager tech guy, but we will see. Now, a UI change that I really like is that they added a background to the text. So as you can see, if I select Bedrock in my hotbar, there is a background to the text, and supposedly you can also adjust the opacity. Well, the problem is that the slider doesn't actually do anything. So when the opacity is at 0%, it should not be visible at all, but as you can see, it is very much visible. And when I just put it to 100%, it is the exact same. I can put it to 50%, it will look the exact same. So the default was indeed 0% for me, and that should normally be what it used to look like before, so that there is no background at all. But it is at 100% regardless of what you do. So yeah, that is something that you have to keep in mind. But really, I don't mind it at all, because this background looks really cool, and I think overall it is a very nice UI change. So one fix that has actually been awaited for a very long time is that moving blocks had the incorrect hitbox, and that broke a bunch of things, including shulker loaders. So that, for example, is my version 1 shulker loader. It broke back in 1.14.20 when this moving block hitbox bug was introduced, but that seems to be somewhat fixed, and by somewhat fixed I mean that those kinds of things will work again, I believe. I haven't tested it to its full extent yet, so don't take my word for that, but it does seem to be working fine as it did before 1.14.20, so that's in 1.14.1 and lower. And oh well, I guess not. And I just had a shulker box escape and glitch up to the top, so maybe not, but well, you know what, I have a V2 version of the shulker loader anyway, so I would go use that one instead of this one. So yeah, I guess, well, they did fix the bug supposedly. There are still some slight changes that result in this being broken, but my V2 shulker loader should still work, so just use that one. And what this also fixed is that, for example, rails would not pull minecarts along properly anymore, because, well, the rail hitbox would turn into a full block hitbox when it was moved, and it would just not get pulled along at all. So that now works, and that is pretty great, because, well, we use that in various farms. So yeah, it is also good to have this back, because that was actually quite a big problem. And what is also good about this is that we can push players again that are sitting in minecarts like this, and well, that was actually quite useful in my opinion, because there were simtech farms and stuff, which are of course not relevant to everyone, but you know, a variety of things. You can also ride flying machines again with minecarts and rails and whatnot, and you can have multi-directional flying machines again that are controlled by detector rails and stuff. So whatever, it's a pretty nice change. But what I mean by semi-fixed is that it doesn't really appear to apply on the client side. So on the client side, it doesn't really work. So as you can see, we have a translocation highway, which was undoubtedly something that is not very intended in a sense, but well, it was broken due to the moving block bug, and with it being fixed, it should also work again. And as you can see, it does not. Normally it would just push the player along, well, pull it along from the sides of these glass panes, and move him forward at 20 blocks per second. This specific one was 20 blocks per second, but there were also many faster ones. And the theory of another TechRock member, which is 77 Tires, is that it does not apply client side. So to the client, moving blocks are still full blocks, but for other mobs it seems to be working fine enough. But yeah, if we go up here in this translocation elevator, it does not work either. So yeah, it definitely is not reverted to the exact state as it was in 1.14.1. That being said, some smart people have been at work, and this is also concepted by 77 Tigers. And well, since the boat is not client-side controlled, it is server-side controlled. If you don't know, there always is an internal server, so even if you are on single player, there is a server and there is a client. And well, since that is server-side controlled, it does sort of enact some form of translocation, and that is pretty cool, because well, it still means that there are possibilities for translocation and fast movement using that kind of stuff, and that is something that we did not have in between this beta fix and the 1.14.1 version where things still work normally. So yeah, that is pretty cool. Although I have seen 77 Tigers, yes, I know that's the third time I say it, but he's really good with this kind of stuff. I have seen him make a translocation elevator that looks a little different to this one, and it uses fence gates instead, closed fence gates, and it works with the player only. So that remains to be seen if it's actually only a server-side fix, or if it does actually have some change added to the client side as well. That is a big question, but we don't have enough information on this yet, and we will have to see. Most likely the only scenario, however, that will matter a lot in normal gameplay is, for example, these slime launchers right here. So as you can see, if I do stand directly in the middle and power this, it does not work at all. As you can see, I don't get launched up at all, which is very interesting. But if I stand slightly more to the edge, as you can see, there still is this weird behavior where I get teleported to the next block and I get launched up properly. But this is also a consequence of the moving block bug, and well, it is very weird. And we can try something similar. We're just going to make a redstone block on a clock, just like this, and if I stand on top, I will eventually glitch in and then glitch to the side, and well, that is kind of frustrating, and I do believe it happens with normal blocks as well. Let's just try this out. Yeah, I just get pushed to the side, so this is definitely not fixed in that sense, and maybe that also relates to the fact that it is not fixed client side. Actually, let's try this out with another mob. Let's just do it like this, and he should be spawned directly in the center. Does he get launched up? Yes, he does. So that is pretty interesting. We can push him a little more to the side and see if the same problem applies as with the player. Nope, it does not. So that does seem to be working as intended, but with the player it definitely does not. So if I just stand to the edge, yeah, it's still the same problem. Same, I mean, and if I stand in the center, don't get launched up at all. So that does indeed still need some work, and we can try something similar right here. So hold on, let me just do something like this, and if I stand in front, as you can see, I just get kind of, I don't know, even teleported forward a little weirdly, so that could be seen as some form of translocation, but I don't get actually bounced, and if I stand to the edge, I do get bounced, but I get pushed off to the side again, and yeah, I'm once again in the neighboring block, and yeah, so that is still quite not fixed. So that about does it for the changes that were done in the 1.16.0.63 beta. Well, of course, there are tons more changes, so the changelog is linked in the description, as always, of course. But well, in these videos, I always do the ones that are most relevant to technical gameplay, and sometimes also the ones that are big changes that will be relevant to normal gameplay and technical gameplay and whatnot. But yes, I don't really do all the changelog changes in my videos, because personally I find those boring and everyone else already does it, so you might as well watch the other ones, and then you can watch the more technical changes on this channel right here. Anyhow, that about does it for this beta overview. I hope you found this interesting. Make sure to subscribe if you did, because I have more content just like this on my channel waiting for you to be watched. And well, with that being said, thank you very much for watching, and bye!